I don't want peace. I want problems always.
That's exactly what I want to do in this video. Trouble. No peace at all. Earlier today, I watched some 3 videos which are slightly related. And from those videos, I decided now to offer my unsolicited advice to Raila Amolo Odinga. The first video I watched is that of the game of might and mind. In that video, Kipchumba Murkomen was explaining how they were able to win the presidency. The interventions, the strategy, the tricks and the techniques. In fact, he went further and even explained why, for example, they brought in Musalia Mudavadi, why they brought in Wetangula. Very clear strategy. Then, I also watched another video of Raila Odinga somewhere in Siaya, Game to be precise, attending some funeral. And Raila Odinga was explaining to the audience there that he's going to give Kenya Kwanza up to 30th of this month to conclude the talks. And that if the talks will not be concluded by 30th, then he's going to call Kenyans back to the streets. And I asked myself, who is misadvising Baba? And then the last video I watched is William Ruto's visit to Mount Kenya. He began the journey today and he's going to take 5 good days there. So from the first day, you can clearly tell William Ruto's strategy. So I want to offer some advice, unsolicited advice to Raila Amolo Odinga. Before I do it, in case you're watching this channel up to this stage, please take a second or two, click that subscribe button, so that next time we produce a video like this, YouTube will automatically notify you. And to the subscribers, I want to continue thanking you guys for your continued support. Because without that support, this channel cannot be where it is. Now, without any further ado, let us dive in. I have 6 notes to deliver to Raila Odinga. Number 1, Raila Odinga and Azimio must accept that they were played to call off the Azimio protest. So it's high time for them to accept and move on. I listened to the speech by Kimani Ichung'wah in Kiambu today.
Nataka nikuhakikishie venye watu wa Kiambu na Githurai wanasema mambo ya nusu mkate, mambo ya handshake, hiyo hata hiyo kitu wanaita inclusivity. Inclusivity is another name ya handshake. Na nimewaambia nikiongoza, mimi naenda hapo kuwaambia nusu mkate na handshake hakuna. Watu wa Githurai mumeamua hivyo.
I listened to the speech by Ndindi Nyoro, the speech by William Ruto himself, and the speech by all other speakers. The agenda was one, the alleged handshake.
Hakuna muda hata moja ya kuongea na watu wa maandamano. Na mimi nataka usikize tu hawa wadosi wetu. Wacha niwaulize kwa heshima. Si rais yako hapa? Inde dare haha. Rera demoria kiuria. Niwaulize swali, mwambie rais wetu. Nyinyi kama watu wa Kagio na Mount Kenya, mnataka handshake? Wenye hawataki mkono juu. Nyinyi kama watu wa Kagio, mnaapia rais hiyo maneno ya dialogue awachane nayo kabisa. Hata nione kwa mkono. So in retrospect tunasema no handshake, na hata hiyo maneno ya dialogue sisi tunataka ikwishe, tuendelee kutumikia wa Kenya. Asanteni sana.
So Raila Odinga should accept that they were played to call off the demos, and that the process is a waste of his time. Instead of asking Kalonzo and the other 5 members to join, and the other 4 members to participate in that process, they should forget they were played. Because, William Ruto realized that Azimio protest had actually cornered him. He wanted a strategy of pulling Azimio out of the streets. Remember, the police brutality had taken a toll on most of Raila Odinga supporters. the international community were actually focusing now on that specifically. And also the story of Luos being targeted was also taking a toll on William Ruto and his government. The state of economy, the way the country was paralyzed. He found an opportunity to play Raila Odinga, who accepted to go into a talks. You cannot go into a talk. You cannot enter into any talks with William Ruto and succeed. You can't. If you know that, if you want to know that you can't do that, pay very close attention to what Kipchumba Murkomen said in that interview. So the first thing, Raila Odinga must accept that they were played. Then after accepting it, then they move on. Then the question is, what next? Which takes me to the second thing, which Raila Odinga must note. That William Ruto and Kenya Kwanza are already campaigning for 2027. That's why in his rally today, you could see the kind of mobilization they did. You could see billboards and banners of Ruto in the mountain. The truth of the matter is that Ruto and his team were actually or are actually using these talks to rally their support base. Let's face it, there's Raila Odinga phobia in the mountain. And there's also this issue which they used in the last election, which is the handshake. Why do you think these guys are insisting on handshake while Raila Odinga and Azimio have placed on the table what they want? Why are they insisting on handshake? And they're only insisting on the handshake when in Central Kenya. So basically, they're using these talks to rally their supporters. Remember, before Raila Odinga and Azimio went to the street, Kenyans were already feeling the failure of Kenya Kwanza. And that's why I still insist, and I will repeat, if someone can remove Raila Odinga from the political scene for 1 year, then Kenyans will fail. Jubilee will rule unbothered. Kenyans will fail. Then after 1 year, then Raila Odinga can come. Raila Odinga needs to take a backseat and let Kenya Kwanza rule. Then the failures are obvious. This government is going to fail terribly. But as long as Raila Odinga is there, they will use like these opportunities. Remember, William Ruto used to go to the mountain and people were never attending his events. We saw in Tharaka Nithi. We saw in Umeru. Then they realized that they needed a momentum. So the momentum came itself. Azimio and Kenya Kwanza talking. And the subject is handshake. So they mobilize people. So I can assure you, from today's attendance, tomorrow, I can assure you this. Tomorrow, that momentum is going to be maintained because of just a small mistake of Raila Odinga deciding to enter into that handshake. Number 3, Raila Odinga and Azimio must also realize that as things stand now, William Ruto is the president of the Republic of Kenya. 1 year is almost, so he has 4 more years. So which means Azimio also has 4 years to plot how to remove William Ruto from power. That's if you ask me. So which means for Azimio to remove Ruto from power, they need to consolidate their support base. Nyanza has to be consolidated. Western Kenya has to be consolidated. Coastal region has to be consolidated. Ukambani has to be consolidated. Maybe Mount Kenya, I don't think. There are those in the Mount Kenya who have decided that for them, they'll vote for Ruto. There are those who have decided for them, they will not vote for Ruto. So instead of wasting time with these bipartisan talks, instead of Kalonzo taking 30 days meeting with Kimani Ichung'wah to discuss something which is not going to go anywhere, he should use that time to go to Mombasa. He should use that time to go to Ukambani. Raila Odinga should use that time to go to Migori, where he postponed his activity there. Consolidate the base. Reactivate the networks. And this can be done differently. the individual parties, they can say, okay, in Ukambani, it's Wiper. Then Kalonzo can go and consolidate Wiper in Ukambani. They can say, okay, Western, is it DAP, Kenya? Which region? Or is it going to be ODM? Go there and consolidate. Reactivate those grassroots networks. Raila Odinga should now be more concerned on conducting ODM primaries from the grassroots. So for me, that's the most important thing. Instead of wasting time with these bipartisan talks, that has collapsed. Number 4, and this Raila Odinga and Azimio must take seriously. If they don't take it seriously, then they should stop wasting their supporters' time. Raila Odinga, Azimio, Kalonzo must agree on that team on their presidential candidate early enough. If that candidate is going to be Raila Odinga, they must say it is Raila Odinga. Raila Odinga is going to go back to the ballot, and then they deal with the consequences. Those who will leave early. Those they will be able to bring on board, they will bring on board. If that candidate is going to be a different candidate, let's say Kalonzo Musyoka, then they must identify that candidate, that Kalonzo Musyoka, now. Once that's done, then they can move on and sell that candidate. For example, if, let's say, I normally like using Kalonzo Musyoka because I strongly believe that Kalonzo Musyoka is the only candidate after Raila Odinga in Azimio who can win support of almost Azimio supporters. Now, if it's Kalonzo Musyoka, and then the question is, can ODM supporters in Nyanza, for example, embrace Kalonzo Musyoka's presidential bid? What can be done to make them embrace Kalonzo Musyoka's presidential bid? What about the Mountain? The Mountain never voted for Raila Odinga. Can Kalonzo Musyoka be used now to win them? How can they do it? It requires time. So for me, those are the issues Raila Odinga should be concerned with. The issues Kalonzo Musyoka should be concerned with. The issues my friend Wajakoya the Fifth should be concerned with. Not these bipartisan talks. The issues which are being raised in the bipartisan talks don't matter to me. They don't. You know, you can only talk of the IBC reconstitution, but what about the server? What if you go ahead and the server is audited and the server proves that you won? What next? What next? And cannot allow that. So for me, they must identify a presidential candidate. Time is now. The 5th thing they must do, and for me this is also important, is that Kenya Kwanza and that government of Kenya Kwanza is actually a blessing in disguise for Raila Odinga and Azimio. Because they told these people, they told the Kenyans that these guys are not going to succeed. The truth of the matter is that as we speak, Kenya Kwanza failures are all over. They have failed terribly. Which means only one thing. That Azimio needs now to start focusing on those failures and highlight them. Take advantage, for example, of the finance bill. How is the finance bill going to affect ordinary Kenyans? Or do you want Kenyans to go by William Ruto's lies? Who are the best economists who can be used to educate Kenyans on the impact of finance bill? How can you use this finance bill to get away the mamambogas from William Ruto? Who can explain to mamambogas the impact? Because if you leave it for 5 months, Kenyans shall have adapted to it. This is now the time. And lastly, Azimio, in my view, must revamp their communications strategy and probably appoint a new team. I want to be honest, Azimio team, communication team, is dead. I don't know up to this stage who is the director of communications in Kalonzo Musyoka's office up to this stage. At least ODM we have. But what is their strategy? You know, sometimes you hear Raila Odinga going for a rally in Mombasa, then the same voice, same MC. He goes for an event in Kasarani, the same MC. Raila goes for an event in Kisii, the same MC. Which means there's a problem. Like, for example, let me just give you a typical example. Right now, today, William Ruto embarked on a 5-day tour of Mount Kenya. And yesterday, William Ruto's team released a list of development projects he's taking there. It took Uhuru team to point out that this road William Ruto is planning to launch tomorrow was completed 2 years ago, and it's already in use. The market he opened today in Githurai was started by Uhuru Kenyatta, was completed when Uhuru Kenyatta was still in office. Why should it be opened by Ruto now? You see, so they need a proper communication team who immediately William Ruto will release such kind of a thing. Then they ask a few members of parliament. If they can't get members of parliament, say from Mount Kenya, like they might not have, then they just call for a press conference and tell Kenyans that William Ruto is going to Mount Kenya tomorrow, and he's stated that he's going to launch this project. Then he's challenging them. This project was completed, done. There's no need, because see, if for example William Ruto went to Githurai today and he launched that project, the fact is the entire government machinery were in Githunguri. You expect Musalia Mudavadi, his security, all those resources, and plus per diem, that whole time. Who is scattering for those expenses? And why should the government, because I know a presidential visit like the one which took place today in Githurai is too costly. Why should you use money to launch a project? So they should be able to have a team who will be able to communicate that the project is planning to launch had already been launched. It's a fake project, you know. So I don't know what you think. Baba, I hope this message will reach you. You have my number. Maybe you may want to call me to explain to me what your strategies are. If you don't do that, it's fine. But I know for sure the trajectory you guys are taking is going to lead you guys nowhere. Thank you, and may you have a good day. Bye-bye.